Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a new kind of endeavor here with the Creative Awakening Now podcast, and this is going to be focusing on the situation that artists and musicians in particular are facing right now with the whole coronavirus and shows being canceled. And so we're going to kind of go with that and see where people are at and see how they've been affected, and then also see what kind of positivity is coming from the situation and what kind of inspiration we can all take from it and share with each other. And today I have Mackenzie Page here with me. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And Mackenzie was a former bandmate of mine back in the Colorado days. We were in the band Gipsy Moon together, and we have quite a history. And so it's cool. We haven't connected. We actually had some shows booked. I was going to do a tour out to Colorado in May that kind of all went to the wayside.
Yeah.
And a bunch of badness there. But so now we're reconnecting in this way. And Mackenzie, maybe you could just talk about your creative path and what has brought you to where you are right now, and anything in between.
Yeah, and like David said, we were in a band together, so we know all the things that kind of go into that creative ups and downs of life on the road together. So this is really cool to like reconnect in this fashion. I'm really grateful for it, and I know I was like so looking forward to our shows, and
Me too.
all that just got canceled. My creative path pretty much was Gipsy Moon for the most part. I studied poetry in school, and that's kind of where I started. I took a poetry class when I was in high school. I was like super into math and science in high school, and then my senior year I kind of didn't have any of my art credits. And so I took a couple writing classes in my senior year of high school that just kind of blew this whole part of me open, and I realized like that was my passion. And when I got to college, I went through the whole litany of different things to study, and that was the thing I kept falling back into. So that and philosophy is what I focused on. And so after college, I kind of wanted to explore the musical side of poetry, and a way to, I think that was like a fun way to reach people, because I wanted to be, I didn't want to sit at home and like write poems myself and publish them in a book. And that whole side of poetry wasn't that attractive to me at the time, because I was like, let's go out and have a good time. So songs really spoke to me in that form. And so I learned how to play instruments. I was kind of a late bloomer in that aspect. I didn't really learn music until I was in my 20s, so I was gratefully surrounded by you guys and our other bandmates who were very exceptional musicians. So I got lucky in that. I mean, that's kind of cool when you're surrounded by people who are more proficient than you at their instruments. I mean, you're like a beginner in the advanced class, so you have to really kind of step it up really quickly. And I was grateful for that opportunity that Gipsy Moon provided me. And so, yeah, we disbanded about 2 years ago now. And that has been an interesting time for me. It was, I think, a really big loss of identity. We kind of pile on these identities of like who we are. And that was just so interesting, because I was suddenly in a place. I was also hosting Festival of the Muses, and the band kind of ended right around the same time. And I like moved out of my house and broke up with my partner. And it was like this whole just like complete shedding of identities. And I packed up all my stuff and I moved to Oregon to like live by myself in the woods. And that was just like such a poignant time for me, because I just felt kind of like a brand new baby again, like just totally like had no attachments to anything and just completely new. And so it let me kind of look back at art from a whole different perspective, and not with all these other aspects on it. And since then I've been recording a record, and the record is almost finished, but I was right at the point. I released my Kickstarter like the week that coronavirus hit, which just generally kind of sucked, because I was like, oh man, like this is not the first thing on people's mind is art right now. And like people are like trying to figure out like, how am I going to pay rent for the next 2 months? How am I going to eat? And, I'm having those questions as well. And so like having to put my energy towards that, it just was like so many tugs and pulling. And I felt like, you know what, like there are people right now who really need money for like groceries. And, asking people to back this project at this time just like didn't feel right to me. So it was a tough decision I had to make, and I actually posted about it today, and I did a live video 2 days ago at the bookstore trying to help promote people buying books through the local bookstore. And so I made the announcement then, and It was definitely a tough decision because I think as artists we face failure like more than the regular person does.
Yeah, we do.
And not only that, but like ridiculous mountains of like undefined, you face this roadblock and there's just like no defined way of how to get around it. There's no previous experience. There's no like, here's the how-to on how to get yourself into this festival or how to get around, now you're out of money because your van broke down, like how to get around that aspect. And, that's why I'm grateful for things like Kickstarter. So I just hope that like after all this passes that the world is able to kind of, we're all going to come back in some kind of fashion where art will make its comeback and I'll be able to continue and finally finish this record. It's been a year I've been working on it. And so it's kind of like, it's ready to be born and I'm ready to give it out to the world and generally start looking at the next thing. I think that is another thing we do as artists is we like make something and then we're like, okay, what's next? Okay, what's next? Because, you stand fully behind the stuff you make, but at the same time, there's this part of you that's like, oh, I can do better next time. Like, I got another idea this time, or like, I want to go this complete different direction this time. And I think that's that mindset that keeps you chugging along rather than like, okay, I've made my best work, I'm done now. Like, I think that's just never going to happen. So, yeah, and it's like a weird comforting thought. It's like a little depressing because you're like, I'm never actually going to like make something perfect or that I'm fully proud of or that I'm totally like, okay, I'm done. I can be done now. Like I washed my hands of this. It's like always the next thing, but like kind of sitting with that and sitting with the idea of failure or sitting with the idea of even like this epidemic, it's like sitting with the idea of challenges. I think we're able to then move on and like think of like, because I find myself now sitting here without shows booked with no record coming out, just kind of like, what am I going to do with myself? Like generally, like, what am I going to do next? And I think it's giving me this really powerful kind of creative moment of a life creation moment of like, okay, let me make some goals. Like, what do I want my life to look like now? Where do I want to live? Like, am I living in the place I want to live? Am I doing the side hustles I want to do? It's kind of reframing things a lot. And I think that's going to maybe happen for a lot of people through all of this is like, it gives you this like moment to step back at your life and say, okay, like what's working and what's not working. Cause you have like all the time to sit down and think about it. I think it's going to be like weirdly good for us as a society and as a culture. It's definitely kind of rough though.
There's no question about that. You definitely just touched on like a little bit of everything I wanted to talk about because like this is nothing new, like failure and things falling apart. And, for the artistic community, for musicians in general, we do struggle with these things all the time. And largely it's our egos, our identities are wrapped up in it. And like, I need to do this or I'm going to be, I'm going to be behind or I'm going to fail or people are going to, not keep up with me. And I struggle with this all the time. And I know so many other artists who do, obviously. And
literally every artist. I mean, I was talking to Michael Devine earlier through Facebook, and he has the most gorgeous paintings. Like, look him up. It's 10,000visions.com, Michael Devine. His work is phenomenal, but like even he is, because I was talking to him about this Kickstarter, and he's kind of been like a mentor to me in certain ways, a really long time artist friend where his medium is one thing and mine's the other, but we really connect on the idea of creating. And like he was just like, yo, like as somebody who's older than you, like this is like, get used to it. Like this is the lifestyle. This is what the path is. And I think that like having comfort and knowing that actually like allows you to move through failure or obstacles a little more easily because you're like, oh, it's just another one. I'll get through it like I did the last one, And I think if we could, as a society, take this whole coronavirus in that way, like, okay, this is one thing, like, we'll get through this. Honestly, if you think about, like, all the past generations of humanity and the plagues and the shit that they had to go through, like, we are so lucky. Like, we get to, like, sit at home with the internet and, like, our books and, like,
it's comical, really. Like when we
we got the lottery as far as like historical plagues go.
People all around the world in general are suffering in a way that we'll never know and never be able. And for them, it's just daily life. So in that aspect, obviously, it's like it's laughable, but it's not. Like, this
Yeah,
is
it's
who we are.
relative.
This is
Mhm.
the situation we're in. People are dying, people are suffering, and we are going to suffer, for months to come probably. And nobody really
Totally.
knows, there's no end in sight at this point. So I think it's important to talk about these things, and to stress the fact that yes, like artists especially, I mean, small business owners too, but
Mhm.
artists especially are really suffering because we put so much time into this work. I know for me personally, this year was shaping up to be the biggest year for me. We released our full
Mhm.
length album in January, and
Which is
I've
awesome,
been,
by the way.
yeah,
Love it. Yeah.
and then we've been booking shows, or I've been booking shows all through spring and summer, even going into late summer into fall and stuff. And I was so excited to go out to Colorado and do this tour, and
Mhm.
in one fell swoop, it just
Yeah.
came apart. And trying to rebook now, everybody's scrambling trying to figure out what they're going to do, and no one knows. And it keeps prompting me to sit back and say, you know what, like, this is part of it. Like, this is our journey, this is the path for everyone. And it's suffering seems to be the great equalizer for
Mm.
everyone. The wealthy, the impoverished, the people who are in much worse or much better situations than you, they're also suffering, maybe in different ways. But if nothing else, I think we can take some time to look at that as a community, as a global community, and say, here we are, we're all suffering. Let's stop bitching about it so much.
Mhm.
And what can we find? What kind of beauty can we find of it? And you've already talked about this, so I'm not going to harp on it. But if you have any specific things that you're looking forward to in this time, or specific things that you're going to focus on to help you get through it, or any kind of resources, I want to offer inspiration to people in the
Mhm.
madness, and also awareness. And hopefully people will contribute to the helping artists and stuff through this. But what kind of inspiration can you offer to people, or that it's being offered to you?
Um, well, I guess I can only speak for like where I'm at in it. And I think that like for me, it's odd because I do goals for every month. Like I write down, I bullet journal, like kind of obsessed with it. And so I sit and here I can even show you. And maybe this will help inspire people. But like, so I do like a habit tracker.
Oh, wow.
So I like literally track habits I want to implement in my life. And I do this every day.
Is that
And then
handwritten?
I also like do my goals, things I want to cultivate within the month. And like some of them are simple, like, and it's funny because mine is work on a daily routine. And I think as artists and creatives, like it's really hard to have consistency in our lives. And that's something that like now that we're not touring as much or we're not having like the crazy lifestyle that we used to have as like Gipsy Moon, it's really like important to me to try to cultivate some kind of stability within my creativity
Mm.
and not just be like, oh, I'm going to play the guitar now because I feel like it. It's like, no, actually I sectioned off these 2 hours today to work on this specific, like I'm looking to in this time structure my day to where it's like, okay, I wake up, I meditate, I do my morning pages, which is something I absolutely, it's Julie Cameron technique.
Mm.
And she says to just write freely for 10 to 20 minutes every morning, give yourself a timer and pick a specific time and just kind of ramble, and she says by doing this every morning, you're training yourself to like allow things to come through without judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're like, oh, this is a journal, no one's going to read. I find also like I tend to not offload so much on my friends because I like offload in my journal, like bitching about whatever I like, I'm so pissed about this, and it's like then I get it out and it's like away, and then I don't do that to my community or my friends or family.
Yeah, that's kind.
And that's been helpful to me. And so it's like I do that, and then I exercise, and then I work on guitar. I'll do my exercises on guitar and practice on guitar, and then so that's kind of something I'm trying to cultivate beyond my goals is just like a daily creative routine, not just like, oh, I'm gonna write a song because I feel like it,
Yeah.
which tends to happen anyways, that's just like it just comes out. But like giving myself space for the creativity to come through, like making it more of a practice than like impulsive kind of nature. And I learned that a lot through Elizabeth Gilbert, Big Magic. I have the book right here.
That's a
This
great.
is my I've read it like 4 times. It's kind of absolutely ridiculous. But she just is like, she like pep talks you through your creativity. And that to me is just like the best thing ever. And so she talks about it like work
Mm.
more than like creative spurts. Like I think everybody thinks it's like, oh, you just have like the overcoming moment of passion to go and paint and da, da, da. And it's like, there is that, but it's also like, you got to sit your ass down and like work through the stuff that maybe is not that fun.
Hmm.
Cause, you know, and I read that in Michael Devine's blog today. He's like, it's the kind of love relationship that isn't the passionate, you know, first love, romance, honeymoon period. It's commitment. It's like showing up every day for your work. It's showing up, it's making time for it. It's deciding, no, I'm not going to go to happy hour. I actually am going to sit down and write for like 2 hours.
Hmm.
Like that is really, that's what I'm trying to cultivate more, is the practice aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I think that this is the perfect time because I don't have the option to go to happy hour with my friends. I don't have the option to go, you know, instead of like, you know, procrastinate by going to Ross or something, or the thrift store, which I'm obsessed with doing, right? The thrift store. So I'm like, great. I actually am probably going to get down to, when they say it takes like what, 30 days to make a habit or something.
Yeah, something like that.
It's kind of perfect. It's like, okay, if I can like cultivate a daily routine for like this amount of time that we're in quarantine, like I could actually really get used to it and it would just really help my art, I think, because I think that sometimes when people aren't creative, they look at creative people and think it's just they were magically given that.
Hmm.
And the more and more I am, you know, down the path of being an artist, it's like that shit is work. It's practice. It's not like you're born with it. Like
Yeah.
maybe you're born with an ability to be a little, it comes more easily to you, but it's hard work. And so that's essentially what I'm trying to cultivate through this time, is the hard work. And then the other thing I'm trying to cultivate or go through is like an honest look at my life and like, is this where I want to be? What do I want to do in 5 years? Where am I going to be in 10 years? Like really trying to cultivate goals and ask myself, like, is this really what I'm going to be doing? And the third thing would be my side hustle, getting my side hustle a little bit more solid. But
Yeah,
that's
that's a good
real
thing to have.
woo, wishy-washy lately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all great stuff. I think that, you know, a lot of people are coming to that realization that like if we can just let go, you know, it sucks, it hurts us all, and it's going to hurt for time to come. But if we can just let go of that and focus on what's in front of us, and yeah, you know, like start working on booking gigs out in the future, or start putting together your website or whatever it is, you know. I know for me, like trying to actually like wrap my head around all the different streams that I'm kind of dipping my toes in these days. Like I bring it all together and like just spending time reconnecting with why I do what I do. You know,
Yeah.
coming back to this
Getting
podcast for me.
your, yeah, getting your like intentions. You're like, okay, why am I doing this? Oh,
Exactly.
that's right.
Yeah, and just
Or
feeling
like even
that.
asking yourself, like, is this what I want to do? Like that's a huge thing that I think that, especially with social media, man, like I like caution people with all this and social media, like that it's dangerous, dude. Social media is dangerous for artists because you get on there and you're like, oh my God, like I'm not crushing it. Everybody else is doing so much better.
Yeah,
It's a dangerous game. And like
it is.
I tend to now I just post and I like go. Then I like leave it for like a day, you know, and because it's just it's definitely a dangerous game. And
It,
I think that especially now that that's all we kind of have to rely on as far as socialization is going to get even a little bit
yeah.
kind of crazier because we're going to be going stir crazy and be like, well, they're doing that and they've got this accomplished and I'm not accomplished, you know. I think we also need to like chill out for a minute.
It's always been like that, but this is definitely a scary time. And I was just having that conversation about like, you know, like you were saying, we're so privileged just to be like, oh, like basically we just don't have to work and the government's going to give us money and we're going to just sit on social media all day. I mean, it's not that simple, but still like
There
we're,
is a huge aspect of that.
yeah, we're just so spoiled. And so we just like forget to be really grateful for what we have. And this time
Yeah.
is, it's hard and there's no question about that. But the hard times are some of the most rewarding times for us. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as creative people, we all know that, you know, when you get down, I know for me, when our old band, when Gipsy Moon broke, or when I left the band, it
Mm-hmm.
was one of the hardest periods of my entire life. I struggled so much because of my identity and like my
Mm-hmm.
clinging to that thing and like my need to have that as my I had this whole persona
Like
built.
how people knew you and like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
like your place in the world. And trust me, I like just went through that shit.
Yeah, well, exactly.
In real life. I'm still going through
Yeah.
it. It still hits me sometimes where I'm just like, oh my God, like nobody gives a fuck anymore. Like, damn it.
Yeah, it's
You know,
hard.
and it's just like silly.
But the thing that comes from it, though, for me, is exactly like this quarantine. Like I spent a good year, like totally disconnected from everything. Like we were moving around, figuring out where we were going to go, living on this horse farm out in the middle of nowhere. And I committed myself to a daily meditation practice, and I committed myself to creating however I would create and not worrying about the results, not worrying about the outcome. And through that, so much came. All my music now with Life Like Water came through that. I started wood burning. Just all kinds of things that I did. And
Mm-hmm.
this is one of those periods where I think that people should really grasp that opportunity and take advantage of it. And it sounds like you got your chart all drawn out and you're all ready to
Yeah.
go.
I was like doing that shit before because I've it's funny because for me it's been interesting because I've been in this space.
Mhm.
I've been in hibernation for the past 2 years. Like I was like literally like I'm coming out to the world and I was like, bam, just kidding. Just kidding. The world is not ready. Like
Well, that's
and
why I
that
connected
was
with
the
you.
hardest
I
thing
was like,
for me. I was like, damn it, I'm so ready. I'm like so ready. I had all this shit booked. I had the album release planned. I was like doing the thing and then it was just like
that's,
smack you in the face kind of and
I know. And this is
I
what
think it
was
hard for a couple
weird.
days for sure.
Everybody's been talking, 2020, at the end of the 2019, 2020 is going to be the year that we get it. Like I saw so many posts and like the earth was kind of just like, slow down
Yeah,
and
which
take
is
take a breath.
awesome. Apparently, like the canals in Venice are clear, and
I know.
you can see the
Keep
sky
the
in
stars
China.
inside. Yeah.
I
It's
mean, yeah, she's healing.
it is what it is, and maybe it is the earth's way of speaking to us. What all that we can do is roll with the punches and appreciate where we are and learn from
Mhm.
our own stupidity as much as we can. And well, I really appreciate you having this chat with me. I want to keep these somewhat brief. Do you
Yeah,
have any do you have a website or do you have any music or anything like that you can share with people, or are you kind of just like taking
I'm
it
like
now?
still hunkered because we're in the last phases of mixing with my record, and that's kind of where I like ran out of cash, and so I was like, oh, I'll do the Kickstarter, and then it'll help it out. And so that's like I don't really have anything I can share yet, unfortunately. I do have one video I released that's a live video of me and my drummer, and that's out on my Facebook page
And
and
it's
on my website as well.
okay.
So my website is mackenziepagemusic.com. It's pretty simple, but that's just pretty much the best place to find all the stuff. And yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's like I was like, oh, so close, and I was like, just kidding,
Yeah.
just kidding.
Well, at
Get back
least
in the hole, girl. You're
you're
not.
not alone in it. We're
I
everyone
know
to talk to is in
that
this.
is kind of like the weird silver lining of it is that like we're all dealing with it. It's not like
Yeah.
a personal struggle in that way.
Yeah, it is. We have this community, and that's why I really wanted to share this. I think it's
Yeah.
a good topic to be putting out there and inject a little bit of positivity in there. And I really appreciate your positive attitude about it all. It's
I
you.
mean, yeah, like I am now, but like I got my shit too.
Oh, I know. We
Like
all did.
last night on the couch, I was like, oh, I'm worthless. There's nothing for me. Like, because of course I'm a Leo, so I'm pretty fucking dramatic when it comes down to it. But
I can
it's,
attest. We were in a band together for 3 years, and
yeah, right. I get a little wishy-washy sometimes.
it happens. But
It's
it was
good.
crazy because I asked you to come on here because of your Kickstarter, and I wanted to like raise awareness for it and like
Yeah.
get people to go check it out and stuff. But I totally respect your decision to shut it down for now, and I think it's smart. Like it's just a crazy time. We just have
It's
to
a crazy
reassess.
time. And you know what? Like I mean, trust me, like I thought about this shit for the entire week that it was out. Back and forth and back and forth. And like, I was like, well, I guess I could just like, keep trying to hustle. And I'd have days where I'd be like reaching out to people and like hustling it a little bit. And I just kept getting back. Like people were almost like bums. Like they really wanted to help, but they were in a space where they couldn't. And I was just like, you know what? Like people need to focus on their stuff right now. Like that's really where focus needs to be. And like, art is one thing, but I think that, it's this project was a specific thing. And to have like that be, it's just not the time. It's not the time to raise money for a specific project. People are literally trying to make money for rent and food. And I think that like at this point, I'd rather people like donate to like a food shelter or something because we're like on basic needs right now. And, you know, I was like, you know what, as much as I want to get this album out, like, whatever, like that shit can wait. Like we need to really rally together as communities and like make sure everyone's fed, making sure, you know, I chose to call it off the day they decided to not have school back in session, because I was like, that is going to screw so many people over, like having to figure out childcare, like while you're a nurse trying to go to work, trying to help the people. Like it was just crazy. And I was like, you know what, this is like not the time. This is not the time for that. And it was definitely a tough decision, because it was like, God damn it. Like I was 25% funded, you know, but the people that were funding that they're my community. They're the people that, I mean, I knew a good portion of them. And it's like, I just came to the point of being like, you know what, these people like will come back when the time is right to support my work. And
they will, for sure.
Yeah. And it was definitely a tough decision, but it just like, I wrote a lot about it. I would like write from the perspective of keeping it, and then I would like write from the perspective of not, and I would read over them and I'd just be like, of course, the perspective of postponing this is just so much more logical and just seemed so much more right, you know, moralistically right, you know, and that's just where I had to go. Yeah. It's tough though. It's tough when you see that like 25% funded and you're like, oh, I'm just giving all that in. All right. Like,
I know you put in so much work with all this, and it's tough.
Yeah, that's the tough part. But I was 1 week in, so I felt like I didn't release all my content that I was going to release. So there's still like a decent amount that the next time around I can release and like have new stuff for people to look at and watch. So.
Well, by that time you'll have a whole new album written, and you know, who knows where it will be.
I know. Who knows what'll happen then? But I still got to pay for this one.
Yeah.
That's the other hard part as an artist, is like sticking with the shit you already made, you know?
Yes.
Because your mind is always like, what's next? Like, what am I going to create next? And I'm constantly writing. So, and I always think my newest song is my best song.
Of course.
You know, for like a good couple months. And then I'm like, now this song's the best song, and screw that song. Like, it's funny that way, but I think that's what keeps me driven to do it.
Awesome. Well, it's good to hear the positive aspect of it, and you know, to hear that perspective. And I'm sure the more I do this, the more crazy stories are going to come up about people in the same situations, and you know how they're getting through it. But it's helpful, even if it's just for me. It's helpful to hear.
Me too. It's helpful to talk about it.
Yeah, good. And I hope people we'll share it throughout our communities. And I'm going to try and post a link for like a virtual tip jar kind of thing, people to donate, just to help keep us going. You know, you're going to need to buy groceries, we're going to need to pay mortgages, whatever it is. So in this time, we're not making money. So, even if we can get a couple bucks, it'd be great. But thank you once again for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been really nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for listening, and see where we come from next. And we'll keep putting it out there. Stay strong. Much love.